Hi everyone, yes it is true, I am a director, I'm not an IC, and you might be thinking, what are you doing here? This isn't for you, but I promise I have a point, I have worked with many StaffPlus engineers for many years, and what I'd say is that I've seen many of them struggle with one specific thing. When they get to a point in their career, when they get to this place where the scope of their work gets so large, or the company that they work at has so much context, that the brilliance of their ideas no longer can get commitment. This is shocking, I know. Perhaps some of you are struggling with this yourselves. And what I do with folks when they have these problems is I like to kind of walk them through a framework that I've seen be effective over the years in actually getting some commitment when, there are a lot of people to talk to. So we're going to work through that today. We're going to try to do it in 10 minutes, so I'm going to go a bit fast, but I'm very excited to share with you all. Great. So let's cut to the chase. Here are the 5 things that I'm recommending today. 1, know your goal. 2nd, focus on values. 3rd, address your audience. 4th, present the progress. And 5th, open your mind. Now, you don't necessarily need to do all 5 of these things for every kind of change or idea or program you want to run in your organization, but they do work really well together, and I assure you that if you try any one of them, you'll find a bit more success than if you hadn't done any of them. Let's go to number 1. Know your goal. The first person that you end up convincing is yourself. It is very important when you have a new idea, when you have a concept or a program that you want to introduce to your company, your organization, that you really have a good self-understanding as to why you want to do this work. This is a foundational step because if you do enough preparation here, you will have the context and a mental model to prepare you for all the dynamic conversations that you're going to have in the coming time in order to get the commitment that you need. In fact, at this point in time, you may have some self-reflection where you realize it's not the right time for your idea, and that's okay. It's better to take that time now before you start engaging others, and then let that idea incubate, marinate, or whatever until it is ready for further engagement and interaction. So how do you do this? Well, start with what the goals are for the work. And there's sort of 2 parts to this, right? There are some business motivations, of course, that are going to be related to the work that you want to get done. That's why you're trying to propose it in your organization. Perhaps you're thinking about some sort of customer metrics you're looking to improve, performance of your applications that you want to get better. Perhaps you're thinking about increasing revenue, increasing efficiency, whatever it is. But also on top of the business goals, you all have personal goals that are making you interested in this particular program, this particular idea that you're invested in. And you should really spend some time reflecting on what those goals are. Is part of your rationale for wanting to do this because you want to work with new technology? You want to work with specific people in your organization for the first time? You want to get promotion or a reward for the work that you're doing? It's okay to want those things, but understand what your personal motivation is as well, and make sure that you're not compromising in ways that you won't feel comfortable on as you take the path to getting commitment in your organization. The second thing that people don't spend enough time thinking about, but that is very important, is what is it that you know that others in your organization don't? There must be some reason why you've come up with this idea and it's not currently happening. There must be some insights that you have or patterns that you've observed that are hidden to others in your organization. Or perhaps it's an idea that has happened before, that someone has shared before, but you could never quite get the traction to get done. What's different now? What is the new insight that you have? And it's important to really meditate on this point because understanding this is going to be the linchpin of many of the commitment-related conversations you're going to have down the line. Finally, what's going to change because of the work that you're doing, right? Think about this from other people's perspectives as well as your own. Sure, there's all sorts of wonderful things that are going to happen because of your brilliant idea, but the objections that you're going to face on the way to commitment are going to be about the risks or the problems or the costs that are going to come up with your idea. So spend some time thinking about those 2 so that when you walk into these conversations, you are well prepared. Okay, let's get to point number 2. Focus on values and tap into deeper meanings. Ultimately, decisions at any large organization have some connection to the cultural DNA that makes that organization tick, right? There's something that is in the back of everyone's subconscious when they start evaluating decisions in the context of the business they're trying to run that is very important in getting them to commit and to see that idea as valuable to the future of that business. understanding these values and having a good working understanding of the relationship between your idea, your proposal, and those values gives you a map on how you're going to get the commitment that you want. But fundamentally, changing organizational values are time-consuming. And so when you start out, take a look at what you're trying to propose. Is this something that's so fundamentally radical that you're going to need to change the very values that make up the organization that you're working in? If this is the case, what I'd recommend is starting back a little bit further, because you found yourself a first and foundational program or project or idea that you really need to tackle all on its own before you start trying to leapfrog ahead of it and building on top of it for your new idea. When there is existing alignment, use it, right? Don't forget to actually use these values that are in your, company web pages or knowledge bases to your advantage. It might sound a little bit like drinking the Kool-Aid, but I assure you it's very helpful. Here's an example. At Shopify, we talk about being merchant obsessed, and we try to build trust with every interaction. So if we want to do a program related to improving reliability, frame that in terms of merchant trust or customer trust, and then you start tapping into that deeper meaning as to why we're doing this particular kind of work. And then thirdly, if you have an idea that you feel is the right thing to do, but it doesn't quite fit any of these values that you have, but doesn't quite go against them either, start thinking about how you might want to adjust or reframe it in order to tap into this deeper meaning. Okay, again, here's an example. Let's say you really feel strongly that you need to spend a lot of time and effort increasing the scale of the database platform that your organization is using to build your products and applications. Well, if that's the case, you might think about a corporate value. So again, at Shopify, we like to think of ourselves as trying to be a 100-year company, building for the long term. And with that, we want to build simple solutions. So if you frame this increase of scale of your database platform as a way to mitigate the needs for introducing new and more complex databases or storage systems, then you might actually be able to tap into that simplicity as a value in your organization. Okay, let's go on to number 3. Address your audience in a way that meets their needs. And at this point in time, you really need to start asking yourself a fundamental question that people often skip over in the process of getting commitment. Who is my audience? Who do I actually want to convince along the way? Do I need approval? Do I need help? Do I need people? Do I need resources? What is it that I'm looking for, and who are the gatekeepers for these things? And then for each of these folks, start thinking about what their needs are and thinking about what they want to see out of a program or out of an idea or out of a success in their organization. And start connecting your mental model to those needs so that you walk into these conversations well prepared to talk about relevant details. Formal approval is really only one part of getting commitment, right? I'm sure that some folks here have had this experience where they go to the SVP, they lay out their case, they nail the slide deck, and they go off, and a week later, there's no staffing, there's no funding, and you think to yourself, I got approval, I was in the meeting, it's recorded, I can go look at it. And so you follow up, you type in Slack like, hey, I think I got approval, what's going on? And the SVP says back, of course, this is a great idea, I approve that you should probably work on it. And that's not what you really needed, right? There's so many other people that you need to connect with. Frame the audience needs separate from your goals and talk about the things that are important to them. Oftentimes, we can waste a lot of energy of our very valuable time talking about things that ultimately won't actually drive home commitment because they're about factors that don't really matter to the person. Are you talking with someone that is very technology focused? Stick with the data. Are you talking with someone that's very on the business side where you really need to talk more about the financial implications of the work that you're doing? Really connect to what their needs are and not so much as to what your needs are. Instead, focus on your needs when you need to think about what things you don't want to compromise. And then last, but definitely not least, find proxies who can extend your reach. In your organizations, there are people who are influencers or spokespeople. Go talk to them first. Get their commitment. They will do a lot of this work for you and perhaps can open doors that you would be unable to do alone. Map this out and plan the way that you're going to address your audience. Okay, number 4. Present the progress. It's an opportunity to define success. Now, I haven't met a single engineer ever who truly enjoys doing progress reports, right? It's like the worst thing to do. However, it can ultimately be an incredibly useful tool in your toolbox because commitment isn't a one-time event. It's something that needs to sustain through the entire course of a program, right? Mismatched expectations will always bury good work. We can't forget that. Take control of defining success. That means don't be backed into a reporting model that doesn't actually highlight the successes of the program you're trying to run. You might be familiar with the metaphor, the shadows in Plato's cave. Well, dashboards are the shadows in Plato's cave, right? These are the things that define reality, right? It's not a reflection of reality, it is reality because it's what we look at. And so that gives us an incredible tool and a lot of power for us to share the places where we really want to drive focus for help in our organization and getting done the idea or the program that we really feel is going to be valuable for the long term. Well-applied reporting is going to allow you to drive stakeholder focus rather than taking what's given to you, which may lead to distraction instead. And last but not least, open your mind to the ideas of others. If you work in a truly large organization, over time, the idea that you have it is truly successful is going to have its own scale grow. And what you're going to know is that if you're a single person, you're going to need helpers along the way. You're going to need agents who can continue to carry on that scale into the future when it grows bigger than just yourself. And with these folks, autonomy is going to be key. Don't be the bottleneck. Our time is severely limited, and fundamentally, at some point, you might want to go on to do something else or go deeper in the work that you already have. You can't find yourself being involved in decisions routinely when there are others who could actually carry that water for you. Make sure that along the way, you're building context in others. Ultimately, the context that they have will lead to them thinking of new ideas as well, and their variations will help them make this idea their own, which will allow them to act autonomously in the future. They might even be good ones if you really do listen. And that's it. These are the 5 points again. Thank you very much for your time. I hope it was valuable for you all.